Welcome to the World Class Speaking podcast series. This is a place where you will learn how to present, persuade, and profit by improving your communication skills. Each episode in the series is a chapter from the book World Class Speaking in Action. And each chapter is written by a certified world class speaking coach. I'm your host, Matt Miller, and I've carefully crafted and summarized each chapter in the book. Do you want to leave a lasting positive impression on your audience to create a strong bond which will elevate your reputation? Or do you want to leave the stage knowing that you have delighted your audience? This is episode 1 of part 3, or episode 10 overall, and it is called Create World Class Content. And part 3 is Creating World Class Content. And the name of the chapter is written by Muhammad Isa. And the title is Be Diligent and Your Audience Will Be Delighted. And Muhammad Isa is a certified world class speaking coach. And he also provides speech coaching services to his clients to help them get laughs, applause, and get their message across. And this episode is so important because the focus is on the audience. It will outline what you need to do to get your audience on your good side. And in summary, to delight your audience, you must know the following 6 things. Number 1 is knowing who they are. It's very important to do your research before giving a speech. It's very important to know who you're speaking to so that you can direct your message towards those people. You would give a totally different speech if you were presenting in front of work clients, first, if you were presenting in front of high school students, and giving a speech on motivation. It would be totally different. So, based on who your customer avatar is and who your audience is, you want to tailor your message to that specific audience. If you get your audience right, you will be all right. And it's super important that you meet your audience where they're at. For example, if you're going to be going and giving a speech and it's a very technical presentation, well, if you're speaking to a bunch of engineers, that may make sense. But if you're going to be going to a different department where you're talking to operations, it would make a lot more sense to, for lack of a better term, dumb it down or make it more simple or concise. Because if you keep speaking in these specific technical terms, you're going to lose your audience. It's very important to be able to speak to your audience where they're at. And the second thing is you want to engage your audience beforehand. And this is the second thing to delight your audience. You want to engage them beforehand. So prior to your speech, engage your audience, greet them, talk to them, understand who they are, get some of their names, and this will help you build confidence. And then the number 3 thing to delighting your audience is letting them laugh. So the first thing that you can do is you can use self-deprecating humor. And basically what that means is if I was giving a speech, I could talk about how I was such an idiot and I had a 3rd grade reading level when I was in high school and I absolutely hated reading books. And you're kind of putting yourself down, but it can get humor out of your audience. Or maybe you say something that maybe relates to more of them. You can say something along the lines of, when I was driving to give this speech today, my phone died. And because of that, I didn't have my GPS. Well, my not so smart self doesn't know the difference between north, east, south, and west. I cannot navigate anything without my GPS. I am so directionless, and that's something that I've always had issues with. And something like that, you'll get to be able to relate to your audience, and you'll also be able to hopefully get a couple laughs out of them. Then the number 4 thing to delighting your audience is to inspire your audience into action. So give them simple, easy to implement tips, give them inspiration, challenge them to be better versions of themselves. Then number 5 to delight your audience is test new techniques all the time. Now, this is the only way to improve is to test new things. But you want to be super careful because if you're giving a presentation or a speech that's very high value and is getting presented in front of a very high stakes audience, then you want to make sure that you know exactly where you're going and you don't want to do a lot on the spot or spontaneous. However, it is recommended that you try one new technique each speech. Try one new thing and just enough to test the waters, but not enough to change the outcome. I think that's very important. If you're especially getting paid to speak, the person that hires you is going to want you to know your speech like the back of your hand. They're going to want you to not take any chances because their reputation is on the line as well. Therefore, if you're getting paid to speak, it really should be memorized. Sure, there will be some times where you improvise, but at the same time, you want to keep that to a minimum because you want to make sure that your number one priority is delivering value to the audience. And then number 6 coincides with number 5. It's leave nothing to chance. Prepare and practice. This is most important. It is very common for a 60-minute speech to practice 10 times that, or to put 10 hours of preparation into a 1-hour speech. That's very common. When I joined Toastmasters, which is an association where you give speeches in front of a live audience, I would spend 5 to 7 hours to give a 5 to 7 minute speech. That is much more than a 10x. I would spend a ton of time preparing for it. In practicing and preparing, it needs to happen in order for you to deliver a world-class speech. And then second, you also want to avoid inevitable surprises. A couple examples that were given in the book is when you go and give a speech or a presentation, like think of what could go wrong. Always carry 2 slide clickers, have spare batteries, have extra thumb drives, have a backup copy of your slides, and it's always recommended that you use your own laptop. Think through from when you start to when you finish and everything that could go wrong and try to prepare for the worst. If you do that, then chances are you will not have that slip up that a lot of speakers suffer from. In summary, in order to delight your audience, you need to do the following 6 things. Number 1 is knowing who they are. So that's the demographics, their age, their education, but also their psychographics. What are their interests? What are their values? Then number 2 is engage your audience beforehand. Do your pre-work. Go and visit them, understand who they are, try to get to know them, learn their names, and that'll help you build confidence going into your speech. Number 3 is letting your audience laugh. Laughter cures anxiety. And think about how you could use self-deprecating humor to intentionally put yourself down, but also intentionally create humor for the audience. And then number 4 is inspire your audience into action by giving them one clear, concise call to action, one action step that they can take when you're done speaking. Number 5 is test new techniques all the time. This is the only way to improve. You don't want to get monotonous and do the exact same thing every single time. A lot of people will give the same keynote speech, but it's recommended that you do one subtle improvement or one subtle difference to test the waters to see if you want to incorporate that long term into your keynote speech. And then number 6, it coincides with number 5, and it's leaving nothing to chance. The biggest thing to do when you're giving a speech to mitigate failure and to mitigate stress and anxiety is to prepare. Prepare, prepare, prepare. Think of all the things also that are going to go wrong and have an action plan that you can do to mitigate these things that go wrong. Now that you know the benefits of warming up to your audience and getting their approval, next time you give a speech or presentation, study who you are speaking to and tailor your speech to that person. This is the best way to achieve the best results. Know who you're speaking to and tailor your message directly towards them. In the next episode, you will discover the true message behind the story. That's all we've got for this episode on the World Class Speaking podcast series. Until next time, remember that becoming a great communicator is so important because it leads to greater impact, influence, and income. Thank you for listening and have a great day.